I never imagined that Marcus, my husband who had always treated me with such tender affection, would come home with his pregnant first love, Serafina. I indignantly decided to divorce him, but my husband wept in remorse. I can't divorce you. But the child is innocent, you should let her have the baby. Serafina also knelt, pleading tearfully, I won't disrupt your lives, but I beg you to let me stay. Once the child is born, I will disappear immediately, and I will not break my word. I thought my forgiveness would move my husband. But on the day the child was born, Serafina dropped the baby in front of me and tampered with my brakes, nearly causing my death on the road. When Marcus found out, he showed not a shred of emotion. Instead, he questioned me, how could she, the child's birth mother, possibly murder her own child? Aren't you ashamed of slandering her like this? Completely disheartened, I decided to give Marcus 2 gifts on the day of the baby's celebration party. The moment the child was born, Marcus pushed me aside and impatiently squeezed over to Serafina's side, saying, You did so well. I watched as their fingers intertwined, their gazes filled with deep affection, and the infant nestled between them. That scene imprinted itself in my mind like a photograph, fixed there forever. I stood rooted to the spot, dazed, not moving forward, until much later, Serafina seemed to remember I was there. Her face slightly pale, she smiled at me and said, Harper, come and see our child. He's really adorable. Our child? The words pierced my heart like a dagger. But Serafina didn't seem to care, she was enjoying the moment, having completely forgotten her original promise. Seeing my hesitation, Serafina smiled faintly at Marcus and said, Harper's a new mom. She's probably so overwhelmed with joy her mind is blank. I'll bring the baby over to her. Marcus nodded, pleased, his eyes alight with uncontrollable joy. He had no idea what a profound humiliation his joy was to me. We had clearly agreed when we got married that we would live carefree, together until old age, and never have children. So, I underwent a sterilization procedure. And now, he was grinning, telling me to go see the child he had with another woman. An ache like a tide engulfed me. Serafina, holding the infant, came before me and said, Harper, I intruded upon your marriage. It was my fault. But now that things are this way, the child is innocent. If you're unhappy, you can hit me or scold me, but I don't want to create a rift between you and your husband because of me. I will fulfill my promise. Once the child is born, I will leave and never bother you two again. Marcus has always wanted a child. Now he has finally realized his wish, and it's still for your family. Hold the baby. How sincere she sounded. Yet I clearly saw a sinister smile plastered across her face. Serafina held the infant out to me, and without waiting for me to reach out, she simply let go. I watched as the baby fell heavily to the ground, letting out a wail. I looked at Serafina's sinister expression in disbelief. She was so malicious that to frame me, she would even risk an infant's life. There was no pity on Serafina's face, only a triumphant sneer. Harper, how could you be so cruel? The loud wailing startled Marcus, who was lying down. He instantly got up, rushed over, and tenderly picked up the child. In that moment, the way he looked at me was like looking at the most repulsive thing he could imagine. From nearby, Serafina's sobs echoed, Harper, even if you're upset with me, you shouldn't drop the baby to vent your anger. I just said I would leave as soon as the baby was born and never bother you and your husband again. How could you be so cruel? Amidst Serafina's repeated accusations, Marcus fiercely shielded the child in his arms, keeping him away from me, his eyes filled with unfamiliarity and horror. I calmly stated, Can I say that Rafina dropped the baby herself? My words made Marcus give me an even more disgusted look. He protected Serafina and the child behind him, guarding against me like a thief. Serafina complained tearfully, Harper, that's too far-fetched. This child is Marcus's and mine, it's my flesh and blood. No matter how vicious I am, how could I possibly drop my own child? I laughed out of anger, questioning, what wouldn't you do to achieve your goals? Harper, you've gone too far. Marcus, who had never yelled at me, roared at me for the first time, I can indulge your willfulness normally, but this time, I will absolutely not tolerate your recklessness. I've gone too far? At that moment, my heart twisted in agony. I calmly stepped forward. Just as I was about to prove it further, Marcus slapped me across the face the next moment. Harper, even the most vicious of animals doesn't harm its young. How could you be so heartless? At the same time, the hospital room door opened, and Robert and Eleanor arrived. Seeing the two elders, Seraphina's manipulative tears could no longer be controlled. She immediately rushed forward and knelt directly before them. Uncle Robert, Aunt Eleanor, I'm sorry. I was incapable, I didn't protect the child well enough. The two elders looked at Marcus in surprise, asking nervously, what happened to the child? Marcus looked at them, his voice filled with disappointment. Harper dropped the child heavily to the ground. If I hadn't intervened in time, I can't imagine what other cruel things Harper would have done to the child. What? The two elders stared at me in shock. Robert gritted his teeth and roared at me, beast. You've been married into the Hayes residence for so many years and haven't given us any heirs or grandchildren, and I've never blamed you for that. But how could you be so cruel as to want to kill an infant? Get out! Leave this room at once. Don't you dare come near my grandchild. I gave a bitter smile. My heart had long been devoid of its former emotions. I didn't even want to explain anymore. I simply asked calmly, are you truly so willing to believe an outsider? Robert, in his rage, had already lost his reason. He was so angry he raised his hand to strike me. You have the nerve to say that? You're the one who has disappointed us again and again. Is that so? I took a step back, no longer explaining, and left the room and the hospital with a determined gaze. I sped down the road, driving home. I floored the accelerator. Heaven knew how fast I was going. But in my mind, endless beautiful memories turned into painful ones. That year, Marcus and I met in high school. And our connection began. That year, arm in arm, we entered the same university. From then on, we were inseparable. That year, we got married, promising each other to be husband and wife in the next life too. But that year, he suddenly told me he had been drugged and slept with a stranger, though I remained by his side and never changed my heart. A year and a half later, he had a car accident and went to the hospital. There, I saw that stranger, heavily pregnant, by his bedside. The reason I hadn't gotten pregnant all these years was that in our youth, we had agreed we wouldn't have children in this lifetime. I had also undergone sterilization early on. Yet now, he had gotten another woman pregnant. If the first time was the result of being set up, but a year and a half later, getting that woman pregnant again, was that also being set up? Disappointed, I proposed a divorce to Marcus. But he confessed, I love you. I can't let you leave me, divorce is impossible. But the child is innocent, we should let this child be born. Seraphina also knelt, pleading tearfully, I won't disrupt your lives. I only ask that you let me stay. Once the child is born, I will disappear immediately, and I will not break my word. After that, Marcus visited Seraphina every few days. I tried my best to pretend nothing was wrong, how could I truly pretend nothing was wrong? Once, Seraphina came to our house. Marcus was about to get Seraphina a glass of water when his phone rang. He said he had an urgent matter to attend to and asked me to bring Seraphina the water since she was thirsty. I didn't think much of it and handed the water to Seraphina. That very night, Seraphina was rushed to the hospital suffering from severe abdominal pain. The doctor said contraceptive pills had been mixed into the water. When Marcus found out, he stared at me with a hateful expression. Even if this child isn't yours, you can't be so ruthless, can you? That was the first time I saw such a hateful look in Marcus's eyes. I innocently explained, I didn't add anything to the water. As for why this happened, I don't know either. I thought Marcus would trust me. But after listening, his face was filled with disappointment. Harper, I know you've always harbored resentment towards that child, that you're unhappy about my infidelity, and that you harbor hostility towards Seraphina. But your excuse is too absurd. Even if Seraphina has many faults, she is still the child's birth mother. How could she possibly harm her own child? You don't even bother to come up with a believable lie now? This excuse is so childish. Marcus's cold determination stunned me. Just as we stood in silence, Serafina appeared, as if on cue. She cried to Marcus, "I'm sorry, Marcus, it's my fault. I shouldn't have appeared, and I shouldn't have gotten pregnant with this child." Marcus glared coldly at me and comforted Serafina, "It's not your fault. The child is innocent, and the child has done nothing wrong." Receiving Marcus's affirmation, Serafina turned and looked at me, wronged. "Harper, please, even if I have 100 faults, even if you have a lot against me, you can hit me or scold me, but the child is innocent." Because Serafina's words clearly insisted that I was the culprit. In my anger, I slapped her hard. "Do you dare to say that again with a clear conscience?" Serafina seemed quite pleased with my slap. She even slapped herself twice, then cried, "Harper, I know you're very unhappy with me. Go ahead and hit me, even kill me if you want. I won't have a single complaint. But I only beg you not to harm the child. Please let the child be born safely. Even if you kill me, I will have no regrets." Marcus was heartbroken upon hearing this. After that, an invisible barrier seemed to truly exist between Marcus and me. Meanwhile, the invisible and intangible barrier between Marcus and Serafina seemed to be disappearing. Marcus began to see Serafina almost every day. Later, when I had to go on a business trip, Marcus simply had Serafina move into the house. Lost in thought, I realized the car was severely speeding. I tried to press the brakes but found the brake system had failed. With a loud crash, the car slammed into a large tree. Viscous blood blurred my vision. As I groggily closed my eyes, I seemed to see Marcus in his school uniform, smiling innocently at me. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in the hospital, and Marcus was sitting beside me. I calmly asked, "Am I not dead yet?" Marcus glanced at me, then turned away. "After your crash, the car caught fire. If Serafina hadn't been worried about you and told me to go look for you, you would be dead." "Oh, really?" I nodded calmly. Perhaps in Marcus's eyes, Serafina's action formed a strong contrast with my dropping the baby. How noble Serafina was. Even though I constantly targeted her, she didn't hold a grudge and even cared for me. The irony was, if it hadn't been for her, I would have died. Compared to her, how despicable I seemed. Marcus shook his head, "Stop targeting Serafina. She promised she would leave after the child was born and wouldn't interfere with our marriage. Furthermore, this child is also my own flesh and blood. If you still have feelings for me, can't you just treat him as your own?" I gave a bitter smile. My unfaithful husband wanted me to treat the mistress's child as my own, without harboring any ill will. Recalling the brake failure, I asked, "Did you ever wonder why I had that accident, or why Serafina just happened to tell you to come find me?" "What do you mean?" Marcus turned to look at me, his eyes filled with complexity. I calmly asked, "What do you think I mean?" Marcus angrily stood up, his eyes barely concealing his disappointment. "I don't know why you crashed, but if Serafina hadn't, despite everything, told me to find you, you would be a corpse right now. She saved your life, yet you're still suspecting her and constantly targeting her. Do you have a conscience? Are you even a person?" For after asking those two questions, Marcus left resolutely. Soon after, his parents arrived. Like Marcus, the two elders looked at me with barely concealed disappointment. Robert shook his head. "Harper, are you resorting to self-harm to protest against us? Why go to such lengths?" Eleanor sighed. "Initially, your father and I felt very guilty about Marcus and Serafina, feeling that Marcus had wronged you. But your series of actions recently have been utterly disappointing. Either trying to drug the child to abort it, or trying to throw the child to its death, and resorting to self-harm as a threat. Any one of these is utterly disheartening. I think you truly need to calm down now. After you're discharged from the hospital, go stay at her parents' house. Don't bother us anymore." After they all left, I silently took off my wedding ring and made a phone call, execute the plan. On the other end of the line, the woman chuckled sinisterly, "You should have worked with me sooner. Marcus isn't worth cherishing at all." Half a month later, Robert and Eleanor called me to discuss the baby's full moon celebration. I quickly dealt with it. As I drove out of the mansion, I unexpectedly ran into Serafina. I had just turned out of the gate, and he car wasn't going fast. But Serafina seemed to have been waiting. When she saw my car, she deliberately stepped forward and was struck. She was taken to the hospital for examination and had a fracture. Before the surgery, Serafina tearfully looked at Marcus and confessed, "I don't blame Harper. It's my fault. I shouldn't have appeared at her doorstep, which led to her hitting me. I deserved it. I won't call the police, and I won't hold a grudge. Please don't blame Harper, okay? If my death could make Harper stop holding resentment and ill will towards you and the child, I would be willing to die." Marcus watched heartbroken as Serafina was wheeled into the operating room. He stood dazed outside the operating room, silent for a long time. When he finally turned to look at me, his gaze was complex. He said nothing and turned to leave. Watching him walk past me indifferently, without a word, I knew he had already said a great deal. The baby's celebration party was held at the Hayes residence. Guests filled the place, making it bustling and lively. I had heard too much private gossip and ridicule recently. Yet Marcus still invited Serafina to the baby's celebration party. When I saw Serafina arrive, walking with crutches, I knew perfectly well that she had succeeded in her scheme. Even if the child was born, she wouldn't disappear. People like her approach Marcus with ulterior motives. Of course, they wouldn't keep their promises. As for Marcus, he must have long forgotten the scene where he tearfully begged me to let Serafina have the baby. I had intended to avoid Serafina, but she deliberately approached me. "Harper, you don't need to thank me for saving your life. I just want you and Marcus to remain deeply in love and treat my child well. That would be enough for me." She was here to provoke me. She thought this would provoke me. But I simply looked at her calmly. "You're quite a piece of work." Serafina paused slightly, then showed a sinister smile. The feeling's mutual. Serafina's despicable smile grew more brazen. Now, she barely bothered to hide it anymore. I calmly shook my head. "Your schemes are truly cunning. You've slandered and framed me again and again, and you've played it out so perfectly that everyone believes you. Your acting is so flawless, you deserve an Oscar." Heh heh. Serafina gave a cold laugh. "Are you impressed? I put the contraceptive pills in that glass of water myself. I deliberately framed you for dropping the baby at the hospital. But even if I tell you the truth and you tell others, who would believe you? And your car crash? I also tampered with your brakes, then told Marcus to go look for you. If you died, that would have put an end to everything. If you didn't die, I'd still come across as a good person. But truthfully, how wonderful would it have been if you had died in that car accident? If you were gone, I would have logically replaced you without putting myself in this situation, without having to use this leg to gain Marcus's complete disgust for you." I nodded. "You're truly vicious, to be so cruel to yourself." Serafina sneered. "How else could I replace you without being cruel? Now everyone in the Hayes family sees you as a woman utterly lacking in grace and tolerance, a cruel person who harmed a baby. They are all utterly disappointed in you. And the people around us? They won't care about right and wrong. They'll just mock you, thinking you're a spineless coward who was humiliated by a mistress who came to your house and could only swallow insults. But facing all this, what can you do? Now, let me teach you another lesson, so you'll be completely kicked out of the Hayes residence." Serafina gave a sinister smile. Then she suddenly threw away her crutches, grabbed me, and cried out in feigned horror, "Harper, no. Don't be angry. At worst, I'll just leave." Next, she deliberately fell heavily to the ground. Her leg, in a cast, bled profusely. With her staged scene, everyone looked at me strangely. Marcus walked over with a grim face and tenderly helped Serafina up. Serafina was pale with pain, still saying, "I'm sorry, Marcus, I shouldn't have come, otherwise Harper wouldn't be so angry." In that instant, Marcus's gaze towards me was filled with extreme disgust. "Harper, how can you be so shameless and immoral? Your behavior is utterly disappointing. Leave, get out of here now. You are not welcome here today." I gave a calm smile and walked over to Marcus. "Of course I'll leave after I deliver my gifts." Then, I handed the divorce papers to Marcus. "How about this gift? If you're satisfied, just sign it. Marcus never expected I had come today to deliver divorce papers. He said with a gloomy face, "Today is my son's baby's celebration party. Please, don't make a scene, okay? Whether we divorce or not, we can talk about it another day." I had, of course, anticipated this, and nodded calmly. "Luckily, I prepared 3 gifts for you today. Since you're not satisfied with the first, I'll give you the second gift." Marcus stared at me with a stiff face. The surrounding guests also looked on with shocked and curious gazes. There was a second gift? The first gift was divorce papers, so what could the second gift be? 5. Not only were the surrounding guests curious, even I couldn't wait to present the second gift. Only Marcus and his parents looked very displeased. The first gift, the divorce papers, had already embarrassed them. The second gift would naturally be even worse. Marcus's face changed repeatedly. He certainly didn't want me to continue with the second gift, and he called out to me unhappily, "Harper, today is our son's baby's celebration party. Please, don't make a scene on such a joyous occasion. It's your son's baby's celebration party, not mine." I immediately corrected him, glancing at Serafina nearby. Disregarding the strange looks from the surrounding guests, I continued, "To be precise, it's our son's baby's celebration party with your mistress." My words ignited a firestorm of gossip. The surrounding guests frowned and sighed in dismay. In the past, the relatives and friends had only gossiped privately about Marcus, Serafina, and me. It was never openly discussed. After all, with Marcus's infidelity, they naturally had to save face. But now, I directly ripped away the pretense right there. He really cheated? This child is Marcus's and the mistress's? Before, my wife gossiped about it, and I just thought she was overthinking, even telling her not to spread rumors. It turns out it was all true. Gasp. I can't believe it. Marcus seems like a decent person, but he's so sordid in private. It's truly lamentable. Cheating is one thing, but to actually have a child from the affair? That's truly shameless. No wonder I thought their marriage wasn't as good as before. How could Marcus have the nerve to have this child? And to invite the mistress to the baby's celebration party? This is too humiliating for Harper. No wonder Harper openly broke off relations and brought divorce papers. If it were me, I'd divorce him too. I already knew that Serafina was no good. She had a shifty-eyed and sly look about her. The whispers continued. Marcus's parents' faces were extremely embarrassed. Marcus was too ashamed to face anyone. He looked at me with a gloomy expression. "Harper, have you made enough of a scene? Do you want to ruin me?" Serafina's eyes flashed, and she immediately followed. "Marcus, do you even need to ask?" I already knew Harper was no good. She has endured patiently until now, just waiting for the right moment. Today is the baby's celebration party, and all your relatives and friends are here. For her to choose this moment to expose everything, how malicious are her intentions? Even now, can't you see that? Seeing Serafina's venomous manipulative look, I gave a cold smile. "My intentions are none of your concern, you who've been involved in petty theft since your teens, repeatedly going to jail, and accumulating a criminal record." Serafina's face instantly changed. She looked at me in disbelief. "You investigated me? So what?" I gave a cold laugh. "If you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to fear." You. Serafina's face turned ashen, then pale. The Hayes residence was a prominent family. Naturally, they couldn't tolerate their son associating with a petty criminal. To have an affair, and not just with anyone, but with such a terrible person. And even to have a child together. Forget about the Hayes residence being a prominent family, any person would feel utterly humiliated and disgraced. My exposure instantly socially ruined Serafina. Sure enough, Marcus, seeing Serafina stammering, immediately asked, "Serafina, are you truly so disgraceful?" I. Serafina frowned. The next moment, Marcus slapped Serafina hard across the face, calling out in disappointment, "Serafina, you liar. You said you were a recent college graduate working at a Fortune 500 company, fired for offending your boss." "It was all a lie." Six facing an enraged Marcus, Serafina knew there was no escape. Thud. She knelt directly before Marcus, slapped herself hard across the face, then said passionately, "I'm sorry, Marcus, I didn't mean to lie to you. It's all because the difference in our statuses is truly too great, and I deeply know that I'm not worthy of you, which is why I had no choice but to lie. I was selfish. For the sake of loving you, I had no moral boundaries. I'm sorry." But Serafina knelt on the ground, looking earnestly at Marcus. Changing her tone, she said, "But if I were given another chance, I would still lie to you, because I love you, I'm hopelessly in love." Serafina's words quieted the surroundings somewhat. Many people's contemptuous glances turned to a hint of sympathy. Even Marcus fell silent. He hadn't expected that Serafina would be so poisoned by love. For him. I gradually understood why Serafina could win Marcus over. What man could resist such an intense offensive from Serafina? Seeing the atmosphere become somewhat delicate, I gave a calm smile. "Seeing you two so deeply in love, I'm relieved. It's a good opportunity for me to present my second gift." Everyone then turned their attention to me again. In front of everyone, I pulled a voice recorder from my pocket. Before anyone else understood what I was about to do, Serafina's face turned utterly pale. She desperately, like a madwoman, rushed towards me, trying to snatch the voice recorder from my hand. But how could I be unprepared? The bodyguard behind me performed a shoulder throw, sending Serafina to the ground, then firmly pinned her down. Pinned to the ground, Serafina still bared her teeth, making her last struggles. "Harper, you terrible person, you tricked me into saying things to frame me." Just revealing the facts. I gave a calm smile and pressed the play button in front of everyone. The surroundings instantly quieted, and Serafina's arrogant voice came from the recording. "Didn't expect it, did you? I put the contraceptive pills in that glass of water myself. If I didn't do that, how could I make Marcus despise you? And I deliberately framed you for dropping the baby at the hospital. That's my child. It pains me to drop my own child, but all of this was to deal with you. As long as I can make Marcus despise you, it's all worth it." "And your car crash? I also tampered with your brakes. I just didn't expect you to be so lucky to be alive, only suffering minor injuries. So I simply decided to be a good person and save your life. How I wished you would die in that car accident. How wonderful it would have been if you had died. If you died, I would have logically replaced you without putting myself in this situation, without having to use this leg to gain Marcus's complete disgust for you. I did everything, but so what? Even if you tell others, no one will believe you. You're destined to lose to me. Just quietly step aside. Marcus doesn't belong to you." As the recording played, everyone's faces changed. They looked at Serafina in horror, instinctively moving away from her. This person was now not just a petty criminal, nor just someone who cheated with Marcus. To get rid of her rival, she didn't hesitate to drug someone's drink and even almost dropped her own child to its death. She even tampered with someone's brakes, attempting murder. When murder failed, she gambled with her own legs. A series of actions, each one horrifying. Words like unscrupulous or worse than animals don't even begin to describe her depravity. Using them would only be an insult to language itself. Who would dare approach such a sinister and terrible person? 7. How could this woman be so ruthless? To replace Harper, she didn't hesitate to almost drop her own child to its death. When one scheme failed, she plotted murder. When murder failed, she even gambled with her own legs. Gasp. Such a cruel person is simply horrifying. Marcus is from a prominent family. How could he have fallen for someone like this? Marcus must have been blind. I'd rather be with a beggar on the street than associate with someone as venomous as a viper. The crowd murmured, their faces filled with horror. They were not only moving away from Serafina but also instinctively stepping back from Marcus. Marcus's eyes were red, and his fists were clenched. He couldn't believe that the woman who had been so extremely caring towards him could secretly do such horrifying things. Are these truly what you did?" Marcus asked tremblingly. Serafina was now firmly pinned down by the bodyguard. She struggled to lift her head, looking at Marcus, and said tearfully, "Marcus, everything I did was for you. You beast." At that moment, Marcus could no longer control himself, as if the last dam in his heart had burst. He slapped Serafina hard across the face. "How could you do such things? Call an ambulance," someone suddenly shouted nearby. It was Marcus's mother, who couldn't handle such a shock. Her blood sugar spiked, and she fainted. Everyone was frantic. Marcus's father, enraged, roared at Marcus, "Why are you still wasting time arguing with this beast? Aren't you going to take this unforgivable scoundrel to the police? Aren't you embarrassed enough? Do you want to kill our whole family too?" The gala, because of my second gift, dissolved into complete chaos. I couldn't be bothered to look again and left amidst the confusion. But as I reached the door, Marcus chased after me. "Harper, where are you going?" I stopped. I turned to look at Marcus. At this moment, he no longer possessed his former calm elegance. He looked like a man consumed by regret, staring at me with a resentful expression, his eyes complex. In the past, perhaps I would have rushed forward, embraced him tightly, and forgiven him. But now, my heart had long died. I tried to speak in the calmest voice possible. "Why are you chasing me? Shouldn't you be celebrating your son's baby's celebration party with Serafina?" Marcus immediately choked with sobs, but still called out, "That's our child." "Are you serious?" I truly wanted to call him shameless. At this point, how could he still have the nerve to say such a thing? "Harper, stay. Let's not get divorced, okay? Let's stay together, raise our child together, build a beautiful family together, and never be separated, okay?" Marcus pleaded tearfully. But at that moment, I finally understood the old saying, "Those who elicit pity often possess qualities that make them contemptible." The wisdom of the past truly holds true. At this point, more words were useless. I shook my head. "I hope the next time we meet, you'll have signed the divorce papers. Goodbye." I turned and got into the car, driving away. Through the rearview mirror, I could see Marcus chasing after the car, shouting something, seeming to genuinely hope I would stay. His sincerity in wanting me to stay seemed more genuine than ever. But no one despised Marcus more than I did at that moment. Because all of this was based on Serafina's public image having collapsed. Before this, Marcus wasn't like this. Before this, if Marcus had trusted me even once, things would never have come to this. Everything he did was enough to make me break down. And now, I've only made him break down once, nothing more. Compared to his cruelty towards me, what I did was nothing. I drank alone until late into the night before returning home. A man in a business suit stood at the mansion's entrance. He had a charming smile and a handsome appearance. He was Asher, an old classmate of mine, just like Marcus. We went to high school together, then the same university. But once Marcus and I got together, Asher and I gradually drifted apart. He got into my car, and we drove back to the mansion together. After pouring Asher a glass of red wine, I carried my own to the balcony, my gaze fixed on the distant Hayes residence. Asher followed, standing beside me. "So?" he asked. "Are they satisfied with the 2 gifts I helped you design?" "Extremely satisfied," I replied calmly, as if discussing something completely unrelated to myself. Seeing my demeanor, Asher raised his wine glass. "Shall we toast to celebrate?" "Heh." I nodded, clinking my glass against his. Asher elegantly sipped his red wine, then commented, "The more a wine ages, the deeper its flavor becomes." Looking at his handsome face, and with the stimulating effect of the alcohol, I couldn't shake the feeling he was hinting at something. Before I could dwell on it, he pulled me into an embrace. I didn't resist, leaning into his arms. "Are you saying you get better with age?" I asked. Asher smiled calmly. "Your judgment was simply poor back then, you missed out on me." I smiled faintly. "Isn't now the perfect time for things to truly unfold?" The next day, I opened my eyes to find Asher gone, with only a note left behind. It read, "A night of bitter longing finally laid bare a decade of dreams. I've loved you for many years, but unfortunately, you were too blind to see. Now I am someone else's husband, and there is no longer any possibility for us. Don't come looking for me. I wouldn't want to become Marcus, and for you to become Serafina. Goodbye forever, Harper, who carried my entire youth. After reading the note, I fell silent for a moment. Returning to the balcony, I breathed in the crisp morning air and smiled faintly. Was last night a farewell ceremony for my youth? It just seems to have come a little too late. Goodbye forever, Asher of my youth. After a moment of silence, I went back inside to wash up, get dressed, and prepare to go out. But just then, footsteps ascended the stairs. I initially thought Asher had returned, but when I turned, I saw Marcus. He was holding a baby in his arms, slowly walking towards me. I shook my head. Did you sign the divorce papers? Marcus's expression darkened. I can't sign them. Then what are you doing here? I asked, displeased. We're not divorced yet. Can't I see you? Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. He seemed to be apologizing, to be showing vulnerability. But in my eyes, I had already given him countless chances. Yet each time, I was met with nothing but heartbreak and anguish. Now, whatever he did, it was superfluous. Especially with him holding Serafina's child and coming here, at this moment, the pain buried deep in my heart could never be mended. I walked up to him, gazing deeply for a moment. It's impossible. You and I both know that wounds torn open repeatedly can never truly heal. We can never go back. Tears, as if worthless, streamed incessantly from Marcus's eyes. He kept twitching, and finally, he actually lifted the baby in his arms. My heart jolted with alarm. What are you doing? I know your dissatisfaction with me is because of Serafina, but now Serafina has been jailed for murder and multiple other charges. Marcus, trembling, held up the baby. We're still husband and wife, we haven't divorced. The only obstacle between us is this child who shouldn't have been born. Now, I'll smash him to death right in front of you, just so you'll forgive me and come back to me. The words had barely left his lips. Marcus, without a moment's hesitation, violently threw the baby down. He scared me so badly I broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, I was close enough to him to catch the baby, preventing that unimaginable scene from unfolding. Smack, after catching the baby, I was so furious I slapped Marcus hard across the face. Are you insane? Faced with my slap and reprimand, he not only showed no anger but grabbed my hand and repeatedly slapped his own face with it. As he hit himself, he said, "Yes, I am insane. If you don't forgive me, I really will go crazy. Harper, forgive me. I don't want a divorce. I just want to be with you." Watching his incoherent, frenzied state, my previously conflicted heart, however, found a sense of release. Serafina would throw a baby for personal gain. And at this moment, wasn't Marcus the same? To achieve his goal, he did just that. Humans truly are an unimaginably fickle species. His capriciousness represented the unknown. And the unknown was the most terrifying thing of all. I could never forgive Marcus. The fear in my heart wouldn't allow me to forgive him, never.